Hi there and welcome to Hard at Work. This is the podcast where we will discuss about mental health in the workplace. I'm your host Patrick and this is the first part of our series Mental Toolkit. We will explore the different methods that we can equip ourselves so that we can maintain a balanced and healthy mental state of mind. Our topic of discussion is habit building and I'm joined today with Marissa.
Hello everyone. My name is Marissa Loifganasutyon. I'm a consultant, coach, and speaker. I have started my career as a television personality in Indonesia, and I moved into the coaching and consulting field a few years ago. And now I happily live in Singapore since 2018, and I'm a mom of two little girls.
You said you were a TV host and then you went into coaching. Like, how did that transition came to be?
It came during the pandemic, like also already pre-pandemic. When I moved to Singapore in 2018, I felt that the television industry was not going to be a place for me permanently for the future. I felt I wanted to pursue a passion of mine that has long been hidden underneath, which was psychology. So I started educating myself in the field of psychology. I went back to school. I got a degree. I'm still in the works of getting my master's degree. So it has become, in a way, a natural transition where I think as a television personality, as a host and MC especially, I've always been speaking to people. But I think now with psychology, because I have been speaking to people, it's also my turn now to listen.
Well, as a therapist, you may be hearing a lot, but now you're supposed to speak because we're going to be discussing a lot today.
Well, that's my first love, speaking, so it's great.
Well, today we're going to talk about habit building. And we hear a lot about habit building all these days because, especially when you were a kid, you have to be disciplined. You have to make good habits. We hear this thing, habit from our teachers, from our parents, but I believe that there's something more to habits than what meets the eye. So how do you perceive habit? What is that importance of building a habit?
So our life is based around habits and routines. May we like it or not, but it's just the way it is. Because habits are mental shortcuts that have been created by our brain to save itself time and energy. You have to imagine it like this. Our brain takes information all the time from our environment, from all of our senses. And it tries to make sense out of all this information that it gets. So if our brain already knows an area, if it already knows a direction, if it already knows a smell, it basically can save time because it already knows all of this information and can therefore make a suggestion of action for the future. For example, let's just say one habit that we have is you walk to work or you drive to work, right? So when you sit down in your car and then you drive towards work, and this is a route that you take nearly every day. You know exactly which exit to take, you know exactly what comes around the corner. And this basically gives the brain time to focus on other things. You can drive a car and at the same time listen to the radio or a podcast for this matter. You can get to your destination because you have done it so many times that your brain already knows what is going to happen next. But if you, for example, drive for the first time, you really have to focus because your brain will think, what is happening? How do I operate this vehicle? I have to use my foot, I have to use my hands, I have to listen, I have to see. And it takes in all this information that you really don't have time to listen to the radio. For another example, actually, is when you drive into an unknown area and then you turn down the music to see better, right? You think about it, you drive into a street, you try to find a house number, but then you turn down the music because you cannot focus. If you listen to the music, your brain does not have the energy to focus on something else. So in short and in summary, habits are basically mental shortcuts that we all need to save ourselves time and energy.
Just to clarify, is mental shortcuts the same thing as muscle memory?
In a way, yes. For example, muscle memory and brushing your teeth. Do you think about every stroke that you do when you brush your up, down? No, right?
Right.
It is already a habit because you know exactly what to do. You think about the day ahead, and it is part of muscle memory. It's part of also a routine. It's basically a system that you create around a certain action. When it comes to building habits,
Mhm.
there is something that people refer to as like the 1% rule. The 1% rule basically just means, in short, that if you get better every day, just 1%, which is minuscule, right?
Mhm.
But that means that you get every day a little bit better than other people or your old self. So the idea between building a successful habit is also keeping the successful habit. So in
Right.
how you keep a successful habit is that you slowly have to ease yourself, therefore also slowly ease your brain to a new routine. When we try, for example, New Year's resolution, it's like my favorite example. Every year, your New Year's resolution are most likely the same.
Mhm.
Every magazine will tell you also every year the same New Year's resolution because most likely you didn't stick to it until the end of January, even. That's when usually people like give up.
Yeah.
But why does this happen? This happens because we expect too much of us. We
Mm.
are excited. We are motivated. I am going to the gym 5 times a week for like 1 hour each. I am going to cut out all carbs and only eat salad from here onwards. You shock your system with too much challenging, uncomfortable new routines that you will most likely switch back to your old self. So the idea behind the 1% rule of habit building is for succession.
Mm.
Simply change a little thing every day or just one thing every week and make it
Mhm.
small, challenging, but small enough for you that you're able to achieve it. And this
Mm.
will then slowly build up a new system and a new routine that you can stick by. Our brain loves routines.
Mhm.
It loves also to keep us alive because that is necessarily like back then how we were wired. Our brain tries everything to keep us away from threats to keep us alive. So technically, when you sit in front of Netflix, you're definitely safe. There's much more things that could happen outside on a run than like right here on the couch on Netflix because it's easy. It gives
Mm.
you instant relief. It makes you happy. So our brain doesn't like things that are new, that are uncomfortable. Therefore, if we want to introduce changes into our everyday life, we have to do it slowly to
Mm.
basically ease ourselves and also ease our brain to uncomfortable change for our self growth.
And I guess that's why a lot of people had such a visceral reaction to when, the COVID hits and everyone just have to basically change their entire routines, no longer having to work and they have to work from home. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's like lots of things. It was a shock for everyone, right? Like
Yeah.
everyone had to adjust somehow. But it was a great reminder and also a mirror to ourselves to
Mhm.
basically dissect of like how have I been living. Lots of us tend to live on autopilot. We're stuck in certain routines that don't really foster our growth. So when we look at people who feel stuck, people who feel that things are not uncomfortable enough in their life to change something but would love to change something, these are people who usually like live on this autopilot everyday monotonous same life. But
Mhm.
when we talk about routines and how important they are, we are talking about routines that foster your growth. It's
Mhm.
supposed to be like a routine where if you feel uncomfortable or unhappy with your current situation, there is a way for you to break this vicious cycle. And this vicious cycle that you need to break is, first of all, being aware of what makes you unhappy. Coming back to habits, our
Mhm.
brain loves the just surviving mode, but we know that we can be better. We know that we can grow to become better people, to also be more creative, to pursue hobbies, because we do have the time if we make it for ourselves.
So going back to how we were talking about how the brain loves routines, I guess that explains why a lot of people have trouble working from home, because when they work from home, they don't really have that much of a routine. And I think you would agree with me that now that we're working from home, it actually challenges us that we have to create the routines for ourselves.
That's right. Absolutely. I think working from home has been an immense blessing with lots of benefits for a certain group of people, but
Mm,
it has also given lots of people like heightened stress because it's time for them to also set their own boundaries. And
right.
then another problem that I've heard a lot from my clients is simple time management. Because now
Mm,
that you're working from home, you're easily distracted by the doorbell ringing, or, oh, I could also just have a nap now in between. So, this is where your own self discipline in
mm,
creating a beneficial routine for you needs to come in.
mm,
And it sounds silly, but structuring your day ahead
mm.
really sets you up for success. So
Right.
if you want to have a successful and productive day, you basically take some time out the night before and really plan it ahead. If you want to go to the gym in the morning, then you take your gym shoes and put them in front of the door, or like even like your gym clothes right next to the bed. So it's the first thing that you see in the morning to remind you of what your intentions were.
Now, before we continue, let me tell you a little bit about the sponsor of this episode. This episode is sponsored by Aventis Wellness, a leading EAP and corporate wellness provider in Asia. You can visit them at aventiswellness.com or by clicking the link down below. Once again, that's aventiswellness.com. Anyways, back to the episode.
Talking about how, when the doorbell rings, or in my case, sometimes, my puppy starts barking out of nowhere, it really does break the concentration. And I guess that's why it's quite important for us, even when we're working from home, that we have a dedicated space that is just for work.
Yes, correct. So that's like one of the things where you really give every place a
Mm,
certain action. For example, you have your designated desk and work area. This is your area where you come to basically just be in the zone, focus, and do deep work. Your bedroom or your bed is your area where you're going to sleep, where you're going to rest. Your downstairs or dining or outside area is like your leisure area, for example. So really just try to stick to certain actions in certain areas of your house. Give yourself not just the mental boundaries, but also the physical boundaries. It helps
mm,
a lot to stay productive and to also have a reminder. It's like, this is my place to rest. I will
mm.
not work here because this is my sacred oasis. There's a rule which is like commonly known as the 3 R's rule.
3 hours.
3 R's. It basically means to success or to like break down a habit. A habit needs a reminder. That's number one. This is like a trigger. For example, your running shoes that triggers in your head the thought, oh, I want to go to the gym.
Mm,
Then the routine, it's like after the trigger, what do you do? So when you see your gym shoes, then you go to the gym. And the reward would be like, what is the reward of a habit? You feel good, for example. This works both ways. This works for good habits and for bad habits. For example, if you always have in the office this basket of candy,
mm,
this will be your trigger when you see it, the reminder. Oh, so every time you walk into the office pantry, there's this basket of candy. So this is your reminder, your trigger. Your routine would be, oh, okay, instead of having a healthy apple, which is like hiding in the fridge, I'm just going to have like this candy bar because it's right there.
there.
And then you have the reward. It tastes delicious, obviously. So you can break this down for all types of habits that you have. And then you can evaluate for yourself, what are the good habits that you already have instilled in your life, and what are the bad habits that you have and would maybe like to get rid of.
I guess a lot of people forget that habits and routines don't just fall under what other people tell you to do. For example, at work, there are other habits that we can develop as well outside of our work time. I guess one of them is dietary, the other
Mm-hmm.
one is time management. What other habits do you try to develop or you would recommend other people developing?
It really depends on the individual, right? Like, what are your
Mhm.
passions? Like, when it comes to work, everyone has like their own work routine, but you can always break it down to how do you approach work in general? Are you productive at work, or are you just working, working to be busy, busy, but actually you're not productive? You're distracted
Mhm.
more often. So let's keep the work part aside and look at your private life.
Mhm.
So just imagine it's New Year's. Make a list and think for yourself, what are the things that you really wanted to incorporate in your life, but haven't had the chance to do so, or haven't had the motivation to stick to? Let's say, for example, for lots of people, it starts with, I want to work out more,
Mhm.
especially after COVID. Lots of people say,
Yeah.
okay, you know what? I want to like get more out. I want to like start a new routine. But then their first approach would be, I'm going to sign up for a gym membership. I'm going to go 4 times a week to the gym. You overdo it. You're shocking your system with too
Mhm.
much change that you cannot keep up. So try to like then come back to this like 1% change, 1% change,
Mhm.
and stay consistent. If you say, okay, I'm going to set myself a new habit of going every Wednesday evening for a walk. You leave for work, but before you leave for work, for example, you take your shoes, your gym shoes, put it in front of the door. So when you get home, you see that. That's your trigger, your reminder. I said to myself, I'm going to go for a walk. Immediately jump into it. Try to make it as easy for you to start your new routine as possible. Set yourself reminders and set yourself up for success. If you have to like walk up to the apartment to get the shoes, or it's too many excuses or too
Right.
many little obstacles in the way that could happen. So try to eliminate it as much as possible. For me, for example, because I'm working from home most of the time,
Mhm.
my reminder would be, I would wake up in the morning and I would just immediately put on gym clothes. I would not even like wear anything else until I just put on my gym clothes. I would then do my emails, do my work, but then I'm already dressed. So for me, just going outside and going for a run is much easier than me changing again and all of that. So I try to eliminate the obstacles in between for me to be able to do this as easy as possible. And then
Mhm.
once you have established this routine, it is much easier and it comes so much more natural because you already know what is the reward. It will
Right.
always feel so difficult going to a workout, but you never regret it afterwards, right?
Right.
It
You
makes
feel
you
good.
happy. You feel great. You feel accomplished. You celebrate yourself. So, keeping that in mind, your brain also gets used to this good feeling and you go,
Mm.
wow, this is nice. And the more you do it, the more you set yourself this routine, the more also you will crave it because your brain wants that reward. So you feel like after a week of not working, I was like, I need to go to the gym. I need that like feeling of
Mm.
achievement.
Right. And I guess that's something that we should really take note about as well. We're talking about reward and how it makes us feel good. And I guess that's what a lot of people tend to feel when they want to even start going for developing a habit. Not
Mm-hmm.
even just working out, but developing any types of habit. They ride on this adrenaline of like, oh, that's why I want to do so many things. I want to do this, and they take up all at
Yes.
once, and there's no, balance. It like you said, it shocks your body, especially when it comes to both mental and physical. I remember when I was first trying to diet, I just
Yeah.
came back from a trip, right?
Mm-hmm.
I came back home. I was like, nope, I ate way too much on that trip. I'm going to go on a diet. I went on intermittent fasting, worst idea of my life. Next day, I got sick.
Yeah. You collapse, you shock your system, you shock yourself mentally, physically, emotionally, because your body is like, why are we doing this?
Mm.
You know, you have to slowly introduce change to your routine, to your system, so you are successful in accomplishing this change over time. The idea, I think it was like one of these quotes, the idea is not to win the game, the idea is to keep playing the game. You don't want to just reach your goal of a certain number on the scale. You want to continuously stay there and stay healthy.
All this time we've been talking about how we develop good habits. My question to you is, how do we stop the bad habits?
Okay, this is a good one. Yes, lots of people ask this too. When it comes to bad habits, the bad habits are exactly wired like the good habits. There's a reminder, there's your trigger that you see, there's the routine that you do that initiates your action or your behavior, and then there's the reward that you feel, right? So let's say bad habits usually have a reward that is instant, and that's why we love them so much, because it gives you an instant feel of happiness, instant taste of like delicious chocolate or things like that. So this is like the types of reward, but these rewards, they don't stick, right? Because it's so instant, it's also fleeting. So we always try to get the hit again, get this reward again. So when we want to break a bad habit, you basically look at your triggers. That's the first thing. What are these triggers that initiate your bad habits? For your 3 hours Netflix binge watching, it's most likely the sofa that initiates that, right? But I'm also not telling you should throw out the sofa, but you should be aware of that trigger. So you say, okay, I usually associate my sofa with I'm going to just sit down, relax, and just like watch TV. Whereas you could use this time to, do you want to cultivate reading? Do you want to use that time that you usually spend in front of the TV and go for a walk outside? Then you need to basically restructure this trigger, put something, for example, you put your book on the sofa, which triggers then a new behavior and a new emotion towards the sofa, where you go, I wanted to read a book. This is my reminder for myself that I actually can also sit on this sofa and read a book instead of turning on the television. So I, for example, started doing this back then with the bedroom, because usually it would be like our time to wind down the day, and we would watch a movie in the bedroom. But for me, I just put a book next to the bed for my nightstand. So my husband will watch the movie and I will read the book instead, because it was important to me, because I felt like I lose time in watching senseless things. So I thought, you know what, I'm just changed this reminder for me, and now I just read. And I think this is the most crucial part for good habits, is that you need to identify yourself with the cause. It's like they say, it's this change of identity. Instead of you saying, for example, I am running, like my exercise would be like running. You need to identify yourself and say, I am a runner. You're not just the things that you do, but you identify yourself with the whole personality. So what would a runner do? A runner would go out on the weekends when we have time, in the afternoon, whenever, and go out for a run. But at the same time would stay fit, eat better, simple things like this.
The one last thing that I have to ask is, what would your advice be to anyone who is on this journey to bettering themselves? Despite all their workload, despite their busy schedule, they're still trying to develop that good habit. What is your best advice for them?
Okay, I think best advice would be to, first of all, you need to be honest with yourself. You need to be honest with yourself, to be aware of what you do. We need to stop living on autopilot and not looking left and right. We need to be aware of our actions. We need to be aware, what are we doing? Where do we spend our time? And when we want to set a new habit goal for ourselves, start small. This is really the beginning, and this sets you up for success. Start with small, achievable goals that are challenging for you, but it's also simple. so you can have time to adjust yourself, adjust your brain, adjust your body, mind, and soul to this new swing in your life. And then the next step would be you need to then also set up your environment for this habit goal that you're setting yourself. If you want to, for example, drink water every morning, sounds so simple. Do we all do that? No. Do we?
I'm guilty.
See, right? It's like one of the easiest things that people tell people to do. Just start your day with a glass of water. But we usually don't do it because we don't set up our environment like that. When you want to do that, in the kitchen counter, you just get your bottle of water and a glass next to it and just leave it there in the morning for you to see. This will be your reminder, easy reminders that you can follow through with the routine that you are setting yourself. And then once you have like finished the routine of the habit that you want to go through, enjoy. I think one of the most important things is that we need to also learn how to celebrate ourselves. We are always there for others, to support our family, to support our friends, and we're their best cheerleaders. But we often forget that we also need to cheer for ourselves. And I think if you can stick to these simple steps consistently, then you're setting yourself up for success.
Well, I think that's a perfect place to end this episode. Thank you so much, Marissa, for coming on today. I definitely learned a lot, and I hope everyone listening learned a lot as well.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, so much for listening. And remember, stay well,
stay healthy,
both in mind
and in body.
Bye-bye.
Bye.